It is one afternoon in July 2020 in the Sesme district of Izmir, Turkey, a popular tourist destination known for its beaches and nightlife. But Turkish security forces are on high alert, and Interpol gives one order: arrest the man. The man in question is Necati Arabaci, and moments later he emerges, renowned as the deadliest and most brutal president of the Hells Angel Motorcycle Club.
Belonging to the Hells Angels motorcycle.
Hells Angels, all 7 of them.
It's a blow to the Blood family mafia.
The ring was run by the Hells Angels and has since been shut down.
To understand Necati Arabaci better, there needs to be a little context given for the infamous Hells Angel Motorcycle Club itself. The HAMC is one of the most well-known and notorious outlaw motorcycle clubs in the world. It dates all the way back to 1948 when it was founded in Fontana, California. Its creation was the result of a group of World War II veterans who were looking for a home, a place where they could share brotherhood. Today, the Hells Angels are famous for their distinctive insignia, a winged death's head. However, that's not the reason they're notorious. Rather, it is their involvement in a wide range of criminal activities that keeps them in the headlines. But how did a group that values camaraderie lead to this? The problem is itself in its values. The club's structure, secrecy, and strong loyalty among members made it an effective organization for illegal activities, including drug trafficking, arms dealing, and prostitution, and that led to their clash with law enforcement agencies. Now, back to the story. Introducing Necati Arabaci, born in Germany in 1972, a criminal-minded individual who established himself as a powerful figure in the red light districts of German cities. He started off with humble beginnings, but was exposed to a life of crime very early on, which allowed him to carve his own niche in the criminal underworld. By the early 1990s, he was already in contact with Hells Angels bouncers in the city of Cologne. That initial introduction with the right people thrust him into a world he could never turn back from. All those bouncer connections came to use. It wasn't long before he made a name for himself, and then reigned control over nightclubs and prostitution rings in German cities, making him quite the influential individual. One of the most notable brothels he operated was Colosseum in Augsburg, but he wasn't a one-trick pony, as his influence extended beyond Germany. In fact, he established operations both in Mallorca and Frankfurt, but the sneakiest way possible, he posed as a fruit dealer to conceal his criminal enterprises. People were wary of him for good reason. His operations were known for their ruthlessness, employing violence and intimidation to maintain control over his businesses and the individuals working within them. Arabaci was deeply involved in human trafficking, going as far as to bring unwilling women from abroad and forcing them into prostitution. If that wasn't bad enough already, his brothels were infamous for the horrible working conditions and the mistreatment of the workers. And that too was just the tip of the iceberg. Arabaci's corruption flowed deeper than that, as he wasn't shy about engaging in extortion and racketeering. In fact, he regularly used threats and violence to extort money from businesses and individuals, solidifying his presence in the criminal underworld. It wasn't long before he rapidly started climbing the ranks in the notorious organization, reaching a leadership position in the early 2000s. Hells Angels recognized the skill set the man possessed, with his ability to effectively manage and expand multiple criminal enterprises. He was feared and respected at the same time, becoming renowned as the deadliest leader Hells Angels had ever seen. That is, until the German authorities caught a whiff of his illegal activities. To be specific, the German authorities planned a crackdown on the extensive drug trafficking rings in Germany. Various law enforcement agencies, including the German police and even international agencies, put their heads together and carried out the operation. And amidst the crossfire, Necati Arabaci became a target. It was his first brush with the law, but definitely not the last. In 2002, he was arrested by German authorities and a plethora of charges were slapped on him: pimping, human trafficking, assault, extortion, weapons violations, racketeering, you name it. In his 2004 trial, he confessed and admitted to all the charges, leading to his heavy sentence of 9 years in prison. But that didn't mean his criminal activities ended there. If anything, they only grew more prominent. Despite being in jail, Arabaci reportedly continued to manage and coordinate drug trafficking operations, using his connections and influence in the criminal underworld to his advantage. But of course, the question arises of what primary communication methods he would use for these activities. Arabaci dabbled in various covert methods to communicate with his associates out of prison, which included utilizing coded messages, contraband cell phones, and other forms of illicit methods. But even that isn't enough to get one by in prison, so Arabaci resorted to even dirtier tactics. To ensure he had full control of what was going on both inside and outside the prison, Arabaci would bribe prison officials in an attempt to facilitate his operations, and it worked out for him just fine. When the prison authorities figured out they weren't up against some everyday thief in an orange jumpsuit, they started implementing stricter security measures and techniques to monitor him. They even made a last-ditch effort to introduce rehabilitation programs to him, hoping he could see the error of his ways. The success of the Colosseum brothel in Augsburg proved that none of their measures were effective enough, as Arabaci puppeteered his criminal enterprises with much ease, even while he was locked inside a cell. But he did more than just resume his criminal activities outside. No, he was equally as dangerous while he was inside. While detained in his cell, Arabaci allegedly conspired to kill the prosecutor working against him, going as far as to hire an Albanian hitman from Duisburg to carry out the plot. Luckily, the police had already installed surveillance in the visiting room, and his plot was foiled before it could come to fruition. The prosecutor was assigned bodyguards and police protection, escaping from Arabaci's clutches. However, the officials would not let go of this transgression so easily. Once the recordings of the visiting room conversations were obtained, Arabaci faced additional prosecution with the aim of securing Sicherungsverwahrung, or indefinite detention for highly dangerous criminals. But, with how luck may have it, a mistranslation of some transcripts was discovered, leading to Arabaci's acquittal. The whole 9 years of his sentence hadn't passed, but Arabaci was eventually released in 2007, but that didn't mean he was let off lightly, as he was deported back to Turkey in 2008. That also didn't mean his activities ceased in the slightest, as now he was back in his homeland, ready to start his new chapter of terror. If anything, Arabaci's turn to Turkey was seen by many as a strategic move to escape the increasing pressure from German law enforcement. His time in Germany only solidified his experience in the criminal industry and allowed him to maintain a significant influence within the Turkish criminal underworld. And here's the interesting part. His departure from Germany was not permanent, as he was reported to have entered and exited Germany many times using a fake Bulgarian passport. This, of course, cannot be accomplished by a normal man with no resources, but Arabaci was no normal man after all. Arabaci was smart. He knew how to leverage the connections he'd formed in the past decade or so. In fact, an insider reported that while in Germany, Arabaci signed a cooperation with the street gang United Tribuns. United Tribuns was a street gang predominantly composed of individuals with Turkish and Kurdish backgrounds, gaining notoriety in Germany for their involvement in organized crime. As a result, even after his deportation, several members of Arabaci's gang faction were sighted in Berlin in 2008, possibly trying to gain a foothold for the gang in the city's red light scene. Speaking of connections, mob bosses and mafia members were not the only ones to dine at Arabaci's table. Rather, it was speculated that Arabaci had connections with political and economic elites as well. In fact, Arabaci had close ties with Turkish mob boss Ayhan Bora Kaplan and was spotted at his son's lavish event in Ankara. And this same mob boss had close ties with Turkey's former Interior Minister Süleyman Soylu. Arabaci did more than attend lavish events while he was in Turkey. In 2010, reports surfaced indicating that Arabaci participated in a gathering of top Hells Angels bosses in Izmir, Turkey. It was also around this time that he was appointed president of Hells Angels MC Nomads Turkey, despite being in the country for 2 years only, but he was destined for bigger and better. Arabaci proceeded to expand his operations to neighboring countries, namely Spain and the Netherlands. While it may sound terrifying, he opened trafficking routes that spanned all across Europe. By 2013, he was even viewed as a potential successor to lead the European branch of Hells Angels. This spot was vacated following the arrest of their previous leader, Frank Hanabuth, in Spain, who was involved in similar criminal activities to Arabaci. Perhaps that is why the Spanish authorities became displeased with Arabaci and subsequently issued an arrest warrant for him, valid throughout the European Union. Hells Angels' reign of terror continued in Turkey, with civilians growing restless at the lawlessness.
Turkish riot police have moved in on Taksim Square.
This led to a nationwide crackdown, and in 2018, Turkish police stormed the cities to tackle individuals with arrest warrants linked to Necati Arabaci himself. This involved confiscating AK-47 rifles, pistols, munitions, bulletproof vests and drugs in the process. But the crackdown did little, and the criminal activities continued. The story of Necati Neco Arabaci is far from over. His recent arrest in 2023 by Turkish authorities adds yet another chapter to his already chaotic life. Despite spending years behind bars, Neco's influence and control over his criminal empire have remained largely intact. As history has shown, his resilience and cunning often outmaneuver law enforcement efforts. Whether this latest arrest will mark the end of his reign or merely a pause in his long career of crime remains to be seen. For now, the legacy of the Godfather of Cologne continues to be a testament to his enduring presence in the underground world of organized crime. Turn on the notification bell so that you are the first to enjoy the most compelling documentaries about the world's most notorious outlaw motorcycle clubs. If you enjoyed this video, then click here for another video delving into the inner world of another notorious outlaw motorcycle club.